Jim Romer, Dr. Weather. We'll talk about this upcoming, really important Tuesday USDA report for farmers and commodity traders in grains and cotton, the planted acres report, and also the drought in wheat that we began predicting about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Why am I wearing this Dolphin shirt and not a hat of corn or soybeans as we head into the growing season, the planting season? Well, I do have my Iowa corn hat on here. I'm still in Florida where it's warm. What a winter we've had. A lot of volatility in a lot of markets. And we'll talk about today the USDA report coming up, as well as El Nino, will it form, and some implications for the grain market, particularly wheat. And you can now join me on Substack. If you want some free information occasionally, don't want to subscribe to my newsletter, Weather Wealth, you can get some free reports at my site. Brief updates about weather and global commodities for free on Substack. So first of all, why have wheat prices soared, particularly the Kansas City, July, Chicago wheat spread? Look at the drought there, Nebraska down to Texas and Oklahoma. The residual effects of La Nina, look at the fields there in parts of Kansas there in the lower right. And we saw this breakout technically really a few months ago. And also the Mideast war, the war in Ukraine, possibly lowering wheat production, recent heat stress in India, also creating this bull move in the market. The stronger dollar and improved weather in both Europe and also Russia coming up could put pressure on Chicago versus the Kansas City wheat contract. Also, this a few weeks ago by Sean Hackett discussing how wars typically create inflation fears and also a flight to safety. Wheat prices having effect also being bullish because of concerns about exporting wheat out of Russia and Ukraine and perhaps lower production over there as well. So, what about the factors that may influence El Nino versus lingering La Nina that's creating some of this drought in the deep south and the western plains wheat areas? Will El Nino form? We'll be updating Weather Wealth clients an awful lot here over the next few months about whether or not El Nino forms by summer and potentially could actually save the corn and soybean crops from problems this summer. So first of all, we still have occasional La Nina-like conditions. There are several factors that really contribute to either El Nino or La Nina. One is global angular momentum, not really discussed much. When you see, for example, the center along the equator, the Earth rotating more slowly, that's when a woman, for example, skating there on the left has her arms out, right? They're close together, that you spin more quickly. Negative means sort of a slower rotation of the axis of the Earth at the equator, and as a result, dry weather there in the plains, right? And as well as that, what you basically have also is the SOI index. This also represents occasional weak La Nina conditions continuing. That's why this drought's exacerbated in parts of the plains here over the last month or so. Winds blowing there on top from east to west, cooling waters. Really not that cool yet. It's actually beginning to warm up, but the trade winds going from east to west tend to create this negative global angular momentum at times. There, the lower right bottom of your screen is El Nino neutral, which we have right now in the center. Weak El Nino conditions on both sides. What does this all talk about? Contrasting views. The ocean temperatures there on the bottom suggest maybe El Nino forming in the next couple months, but the east to west trade winds and the global angular momentum being negative still has occasional La Nina conditions. Confusing? Yes. And that's what it's going to make forecasting this spring and summer pretty challenging for grains. I've been pretty much bearish the last 2 or 3 summers. My early forecast for farmers that have hedged crops and traders shorted corn and beans, both last year and in 2024 in June or July in my forecast. This year, we have to really look at the timing of if and when El Nino actually forms. Good news, though, over the next week or two, lots of moisture for the drought-stricken south. They're in green and also blue. Above normal rainfall for the central and eastern corn belt. Some of the soft red crops will benefit from this. The hard red crops in the plains, some rain, but not really enough right now to break the drought situation. So how about the U.S. planted acres preview? It's really a clash, not glass, between geopolitics and also climate. right? So we have the situation with the war in Iran causing concern about fertilizing costs and higher prices, and that tends to reduce corn acreage. But again, the USDA can throw some shocks. They've done that before, folks. And here are the average guesses right now. I don't like really guessing on most of these reports, but the weather will become much more of a factor once these reports are out of the way. Corn acres, average guess down about 4.8%. Soybean acres up maybe 5.9%. That seems like a lot. And of course, these reports can create occasional shockers to the marketplace. Here's the predictions by one company, Cocoa Bank, showing a reduction in corn acres. They're on the top right, increase in bean acres. And if we have good weather, obviously, both corn and beans will be going lower this spring and summer. We also have the big South American harvest still hitting the market here over the next couple months. So, can El Nino affect planted acres numbers? Now, El Nino has actually not formed yet, but typically it really doesn't. There are other factors really with the geopolitics of fertilizing costs and parts of the drought down in the deep south and also western Midwest. Again, the deep south drought is going to be easing here over the next few weeks and will affect corn, cotton, and also soybean planting intentions. So El Nino itself has mixed results in the summer. Everybody, as far as production goes, everybody thinks that it creates bear markets all the time and above normal yields. Well, about 70% of the cases going back really to the early 1900s, they're in red. Yes, we have above normal corn yields in the Midwest, but there are several times that that has not been the case. And if El Nino holds off and doesn't form till after August or September, this drought situation in the Western Plains may possibly expand to the Corn Belt and could be a bull market at some point. Right now, though, South American weather has been bearish, and moisture coming to the Midwest is one bearish factor that we have to contend with here over the next probably month or two. So, anyway, subscribe to my abbreviated Weather Wealth newsletter on Substack. The trading ideas and all my hedging strategies, of course, come from my Weather Wealth newsletter to premium subscribers. But you can get some of my updates here on Substack about the weather and certainly ask me a question once a month. Anyway, be careful during these USDA reports. They can be blindsiding the people, and the market will be focusing right after that on the plains weather, whether it rains or not in April and May, and also corn and soybean planting as we go into May and June. Enjoy.